Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT11, and BT11 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to be able to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a brand new iteration on the Mastemon deck. So Mastemon was a deck all the way back from BT8 that's all about DNAing, and well, that core focus hasn't changed, and in fact, BT11 actually makes it being able to DNA into Mastemon even easier thanks to all of the new support cards. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right in and see what the deck has to offer. So starting off with the Digitama, I'm going to be running 4 copies of DemiMeramon, just because DemiMeramon is still the best generic purple egg that we have, with his on-delete ability adding some extra cycling into the deck to not only just try to filter through our deck as quickly as we possibly can, but to try to set up our trash as best as we possibly can. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Gazimon. So Gazimon is in the deck just to act as an anti-meta rookie, where Gazimon is stopping the opponent from doing any memory manipulating shenanigans to try to slow them down as much as we possibly can. Next, I'm going to be running 3 copies of Psychemon for a very similar reason, except Psychemon is stopping the opponent from reducing their play costs, so it's a really good card to try to shut off the opponent's death X's or cross plays. And then the last rookie of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Ignitemon. So Ignitemon is a fantastic new inclusion into the deck just because its inheritable ability helps us gain memory when we play Digimon by card effects during all turns, which is pretty powerful because we have multiple different ways to be able to utilize this effect. Then on top of that, it has a nice native when attacking ability that's deleting our own Digimon to try to delete the opponent's Digimon, having some extra removal into the deck when we need it in a pinch. Next, on to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gatomon. So the starter deck Gatomon is still one of the most important cards in the deck. Not only does it help us DNA in case we don't have our Tamer because its inheritable ability lets us DNA at the end of our turn, but it's also acting as one of the deck's primary digging tools, so that way we could try to search out the cards that we need, and on top of that, it's acting as a really good tempo tool as well, allowing us to reduce the cost of our Digivolution when we're digivolving into an Angel or Fallen Angel, which is the majority of what our level 5s are. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Devimon. So this is the brand new BT11 version of Devimon, and this is a really good card to want to revive because of how aggressive this card can be, gaining Rush and Retaliation as long as we have a yellow Digimon or a Tamer in play. And then the last level 4 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Meicoomon. So I still value the security effect off of Meicoomon being a Digimon that we could play from our security to try to help set us up for a DNA play and have an extra body on the field on top of the synergy that security effect has with some of our other effects like Ignitemon's inheritable. Then on top of that, its inheritable ability still is just pretty generic and pretty decent, where we're going to be gaining 2 memory when our Digimon gets deleted as long as it has 2 or more colors, which is basically all of our level 6 Digimon. Next, on to the level 5s, I'm going to be running 1 copy of MagnaAngemon. So this is the BT1 version of MagnaAngemon, and this isn't as needed as it once was, but it's still pretty decent of a card to have just because it's a really good Flame Hellscythe target because it has 6000 DP, and its on-play ability allowing us to generically recover 1 still is pretty decent. On top of his inheritable ability allowing our Digimon to have some extra DP isn't bad either. But the deck does definitely want to take more advantage of Angewomon and LadyDevi synergies, so for that reason I'm going to be playing 4 copies of Angewomon. So this is the brand new BT11 version of Angewomon, and this card is doing so much for the deck. So the first thing that it's doing is it's allowing us to search our security for our angels, archangels, and fallen angels, so that way we could try to have alternative ways to find the parts and pieces that we need. Then on top of that, she's allowing us to have the ability to gain memory when we play a Mirei or a LadyDevimon, so that way we could be as tempo efficient with our cards as we possibly can. And on top of all of that, she even has a very nice inheritable ability, adding some extra defensive lines of play, giving all of our angels, archangels, or fallen angels the blocker ability as long as we have another purple Digimon in play, which our level 6 should be both purple and yellow, so that way it'll always gain this ability. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of the starter deck Angewomon from the Mastemon starter deck. So if you wanted to, MagnaAngemon could easily be this, or it could be another LadyDevimon if you wanted it to, but I do like this Angewomon because she does have another on-play ability that's kind of similar to Recovering One, except it's adding security attack minus onto the opponent, trying to prevent them from dealing damage into our security. Then on top of that, she also has a nice inheritable ability where she's just adding security attack +1 to our Digimon as long as we have a purple Digimon in play, which our high levels should be both colors. So again, similar to the other one, it should always have access at this ability to be able to deal some decent damage onto the opponent and putting on constant pressure. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of LadyDevimon. So this is the BT3 LadyDevimon, and this is still just one of the better LadyDevimons for this deck to use, just because Digivolving up into her adds some extra consistency, where we basically get to draw 3 and discard 2. Then her inheritable effect doesn't necessarily matter as much, but it's still nice to have for when we use an option, we get to delete one of the opponent's low-level Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Lucemon Chaos Mode. So Lucemon Chaos Mode is going to be one of the primary cards we want to see in our trash and put into our trash, so that way we could use it best with our Mastemon to be able to play him out for free. And his on-play ability is what we're trying to gain off of this card, where we get to delete one of the opponent's tamers, which is pretty valuable because there's a lot of good tamer-based decks, so having some form of tamer removal is already super important, on top of the fact that if they don't have any tamers, then at worst we could still try to control their field and delete a level 6 or lower Digimon, acting as some good extra control. And then the last level 5 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of LadyDevimon. So this LadyDevimon from BT11 is doing something very similar to the Angewomon from BT11, where her when Digivolving ability is going to help us cycle through our cards, which is pretty important, so that way we could grab back our Archangels, Angels, Fallen Angels, and even our Tamer Mirei, so that way we have access at being able to reuse them again and again. Then on top of that, she's going to be doing something similar to the Angewomon, where she's letting us gain memory for playing our Mirei and our Angewomon, so it doesn't necessarily matter which one we go up into, we're still going to be gaining the memory off of their effects in combination with the other cards. Then her inheritable ability, again, is very similar to the BT11 Angewomon, except it requires us to have a yellow Digimon in play, but it's still giving all of our Angels, Archangels, and Fallen Angels the Retaliation ability, which is pretty decent because in combination with Blocker, that combination of effects could be really annoying to deal with for the opponent. Next, on to the level 6s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Mastemon. So you can't play a Mastemon deck without Mastemon, and this is a really good card even now, just because all of the new tech that we got from BT11 supports just how we want to DNA into her. The benefit for Digivolving her with her DNA ability is we get to take a purple or yellow Digimon from our trash, throw it into our security, look at our security, and play a level 5 or lower Digimon from our security for free, which is just pretty decent, so that way we could try to set up another body and utilize that body to do various different things, toolboxing what we can possibly do. Then her secondary ability plays into her first ability, adding some extra removal. When we play another Digimon by a card effect, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon whose level is equal to or less than the Digimon we just played, which is pretty decent because we have a slew of different abilities to be able to play Digimon by card effects, not just off of her ability, but it does combo nicely with her ability. And the crazy thing is, this is not once per turn, so we could use this to try to control the opponent's field relatively efficiently with. And then the last level 6 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Ophanimon Falldown mode. So this is just a pretty decent generic supporting level 6 for the deck. So when we Digivolve up into her, we get to either delete an opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon if she has a purple Digimon in her inheritable source, or if she has a yellow Digimon in her inheritable source, then we get to recover 1, or if she has both in her inheritable source, then we get both effects off, which is just pretty decent utility. Then she even replaces herself when she gets deleted. Because of her on delete effect, we get to play a purple or yellow level 4 or lower Digimon from our trash for free, which we have some pretty good ones that we want to utilize in combination with her. And then the last Digimon of the deck and only level 7 is going to be 1 copy of DeathXmon. So DeathXmon is still just a very powerful Digimon for virtually any deck to run, just because of how easy he is to play, because he reduces his play cost for the opponent having a wide field of Digimon and Tamers. Then on top of that, he's going to be blowing up a lot of the opponent's low-level Digimon and de-digivolving them, acting as a good board clear, and he even has some good recursive removal at the end of the opponent's turn, deleting the opponent's weakest Digimon, which could matter because if they don't have a way to be able to play around this, then it really puts the opponent in a bad position, which makes DeathXmon super good, especially since he's also part purple, which could synergize and interact with a lot of our cards. Next, on to the Tamers, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Kari Kamiya. So Kari from BT8 is going to be the deck's dedicated memory fixing tamer, so she's just always going to be hard setting us to 3 if we're ever less than 3, so that way we could try to make our plays as efficient as we possibly can. Then on top of that, she has a nice ability that's interacting with our security, where whenever a card is added into our security, we get a suspender to gain a memory, which could make some of our cards, like our brand new Angewomon from BT11, a little bit more tempo efficient. But the last tamer and the best tamer for the deck is going to be 4 copies of Mirei. So Mirei does a lot for how this deck wants to work. She is both a purple and yellow tamer, which means that we have easier access at our purple and yellow options. Then on top of that, she has this ability where at the start of our turn, we're just generically going to be gaining a memory, which is pretty decent just because the more Mireis we have on the field, the more memory we're going to be gaining off of her effect, which allows us to have access at more possible lines of play. Then on top of that, what she's doing for the deck, and the whole reason why we're playing her to begin with, is the fact that she's lining up our DNA Digivolution play, where when we Digivolve into an Angewomon or LadyDevimon, if we have only that card on our field, then we get to suspend this tamer and basically play the other one from our hand for free, which just lets us DNA right away with into our Mastemon and get the engine going. And then as far as our options go, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Chaos Degradation. So Chaos Degradation is basically the Gaia Force of the deck. We're using this to try to remove problematic threats and bodies off the field. The best part about this card is just the form of removal that it is, where it's bypassing a lot of protections that the opponent could have, where it's allowing us to place the Digimon into their security and then burn their security, and even at worst, if it's coming out of our security, we won't get to burn their security, but we do get to put the Digimon into their security, which is still getting rid of the problem off the field anyway, making for one of the best removal cards that the deck has access to. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Calling from the Darkness. So Calling from the Darkness is unfortunately limited to 1, which is why we can only run 1, but it's still just a super good card for us to use at recycling our cards, because we get to delete one of our Digimon to return up to 2 purple Digimon from our trash to our hand, so that way we could try to figure out ways to reuse those cards over and over again. And then the last card and last option of the deck is going to be 3 copies of Flame Hellscythe. So Flame Hellscythe is still just a pretty decent card at allowing us to set up our field, again, to try to line up our DNA Digivolution, where we get a minus 6,000 DP on one of the opponent's Digimon for the turn, and then play a purple or yellow Digimon that has 6,000 DP from our trash onto the field for free, so that way we could try to utilize this with various abilities to make this a little bit cheaper to use and set up a body and try to remove a body all in one card, on top of the fact that it actually could be a really decent security threat because its security ability activates its main. So as far as the overall game plan and gameplay of the deck goes, most of the time you do want to go second just for that extra card draw and the extra memory to play around with it, because the 2 most important cards and usually your good game openers is going to be Mirei and Gatomon, just because these are the 2 cards that are enabling us to be able to efficiently go into our Mastemon. So if you see one and not the other, that's perfectly fine, just because you still have lines of play to be able to get to your desired board state. So if you are digivolving up, obviously Ignitemon is going to be the best one to hide in raising, and then it's not necessarily correct 100% of the time to hard play Gatomon for the search. Sometimes it is correct, sometimes it isn't. You kind of are going to have to evaluate based on what your opponent is doing and what your opponent has, and where you are in this game, if that's a good play or not. But even if you do have to digivolve for 3, just hiding a Gatomon in back is still pretty good, because when you move it out, you're still going to be able to at least least reduce the cost of your Digivolution. So that way you could Digivolve and then try to hard play a purple Digimon to be able to then line up our DNA. But when we Digivolve, this is why Mirei is like super important for the deck, so that way we could use Mirei's ability to be able to free play the secondary Digimon anyway, to be able to line up for that DNA Digivolution play, and that's really what we're trying to gain, is just being able to Digivolve into Mastemon quickly and efficiently. Then from Mastemon, usually we're going to want to try to revive Lucemon Chaos Mode if we possibly can. I think Lucemon Chaos Mode in this type of a meta is going to be a little bit more important than MagnaAngemon. The recovery is nice, but MagnaAngemon's better with Flame Hellscythe, so you kind of have to weigh what you have and what you want versus what the opponent is trying to do. So there's just a lot of different lines of play that you can make, because this also is like why the starter deck Angewomon is also pretty good, because she's trying to fulfill a similar role to the MagnaAngemon. But once we get our second level 5 out off of Mastemon's ability, we're going to try starting to delete the opponent's Digimon and control the field from here, which is why Ignitemon is super useful, because in this type of a scenario, let's just say we started at 1 memory, 2 off of Mirei, we would have Digivolved from Gatomon into Angewomon, paid 1 to Digivolve, suspend the Mirei to play the LadyDevimon. Then from LadyDevimon, we're going to DNA into Mastemon. Then from here, we're going to play literally any level 5, and then Ignite is going to gain us the memory back, so it's making our plays extra memory efficient for doing so. If we have the Kari on the field, and we Digivolved into the brand new Angewomon, then we actually get to gain a memory for Digivolving into Angewomon, basically making that evolution free, which means with Ignitemon, we basically get to net an extra 1 memory for utilizing our Kari. So you could kind of start to see where the synergies are on how to be extra memory efficient, because from this type of a position, we get to Digivolve our level 5 into a new level 6, and then kind of start continuing the controlled train from that point forward, depending on what you're bringing back and what the opponent has on the field. So there's just a lot of potential power plays that this deck can make, not only just with Mastemon, but with cards like Ophanimon Falldown mode, just because in this type of a scenario, we could be extra aggressive with our Ophanimon Falldown mode on the following turn. If it does get deleted, then the on-delete ability will trigger, and then we get to play something like the Devimon, and then Devimon will be able to swing with Retaliation right away, because he also would have the Rush ability, as long as we have another yellow Digimon or yellow Tamer on the field, which ideally we should. And Ignitemon is also kind of part of the reason why I still do like the Meicoomon, just because Meicoomon coming out of security actually could ruin the opponent's plan, because it will trigger the Mastemon's ability to try to delete the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon, then it'll trigger the Ignitemon's ability to also let us gain a memory on the opponent's turn as well. So there's just a lot of high synergy going on with the deck, kind of making it a really fun and interesting deck to play, as long as you see your parts and pieces and can get your setup to line up your powerful DNA plays. And then there's still just a whole bunch of various other tech and tools that you could think about incorporating into the deck, all depending on what you want to play and how you want to play it. So if you wanted to, you could think about utilizing a little bit of a Salamon package, just because we do have a Searcher Salamon for our 2-color cards, on top of the fact that we do have a Salamon that lets us DNA at the end of the turn, and we even have Salamon X that's also letting us search through our security and recover as well. Then on top of that, we do have another really good rookie that can synergize with the deck, similar to Ignitemon, in the form of Candlemon. Candlemon's a little bit more limited in terms of the ability that we're gaining off of it, but it's still trying to accomplish a very similar role. Then on top of that, we do have some other decent level 4s that we could play. So we do have the brand new BT11-Angemon that does synergize nicely with us utilizing some various Devimons, and we do have some other really good Devimons that we could play, like the one that has Retaliation and gives Retaliation, and the one that just has Blocker natively, which also is decent on tempo because of its low Digivolution cost. Then as far as some other really good level 5 Digimon that we could run in the deck, we do have the starter deck at LadyDevimon just as another LadyDevimon and a possible Flame Hellscythe target, on top of the fact that we do still have the Meiko stuff that we could incorporate for being more in line with 2-color Digimon. And we even have Angewomon X Antibody to interact with the fact that we could use her to Digivolve on top of our Angewomons and still be able to DNA, while also applying Security Tech Minus and potentially recovering us. And then a really good supporting level 6 that we could think about running as well is going to be the brand new Mervimon. We are running a Retaliation Devimon, or you could run the Retaliation Devimon to make a better use out of this card, but the fact that we could Digicross utilizing the Ignitemon we're already running, and we could even at worst just Digivolve her to be able to replay one of our purple Digimon is still pretty valuable. Then, as far as some other level 7s that we could think about running, Ordinamon is another really good one to try to help act as a comeback mechanic when we're low on our security, and is another way for us to DNA into another Digimon that's fitting on theme and on color with the deck. Then we do have a slew of other different options that we could think about running in both purple and yellow. I'm just going to be highlighting purple memory boost just because memory boosts are always generically decent. Then we do have a couple of other tamers that we could think about playing. If you're running more of the 2-color cards and the Meiko stuff, then you would probably want to run Meiko. But you could just as easily run something like Matt Ishida, just as another alternative memory fixing tamer that could bring stuff back from our trash. And similarly, you could also think about utilizing TK for doing something very similar as Matt, where we're just utilizing it as another generic memory tamer. This time it's in yellow, which actually does matter, and then it's helping us dig through our security and try to find cards from our security. Then in terms of just raw search power, we could think about running something like Analog Youth that could also just help fill up the trash and interact with the fact that we could delete our higher stage Digimon with inheritable sources. So that could be something cute and cheeky you could think about utilizing as well. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.